Jessica Roth here, live with NIU News. Today is a very big day. The Beatles are kicking off their American tour at Shea Stadium in our very own New York City. I'm currently backstage in the VIP lounge, away from the 55,600 screaming fans. I have the opportunity tonight to interview John Lennon and Paul McCartney themselves. Here comes John now! John, may I ask you a few questions before tonight's big show?
Why, of course.
John has been kind enough to give us a few minutes of his time before tonight's big show. I know you only have a few minutes, John, so I'll keep the interview brief. My first question for you is, people refer to you as the smart Beatle. What do you think of that?
Well, I'd probably have to agree with them.
There's a lot of talk about your hairstyles. A lot of people refer to your hair as un-American. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's very observant of them. Well, you see, we aren't actually Americans.
How do you feel about all this business of all these screaming girls following you all over the place?
Well, we feel flattered and flattened.
Thank you, John. Here comes Paul. Paul McCartney, may I ask you a few questions before tonight's show in New York City?
Why, of course, my sweet darling.
Thank you for your time, Paul.
Of course.
My first question is, you are known as the cute Beatle. How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel great. The girls do love me.
Is your hair real?
Is yours?
What is your favorite sport?
Let's see, my favorite sport, sleeping.
Me too, Paul. I love that.
Isn't it great?
You Beatles have conquered 5 continents. What do you want to do next?
Conquer 6.
Will you ever stop being the Beatles?
We are the Beatles, and that's what will stay.
That is all. Thank you for your time, Paul. Jessica Roth and Paul McCartney here, live with NIU News. It is time for tonight's big show. Thank you. Bye. Beatles Girl 101 here. I love watching old interviews of the Beatles, just like the ones we just watched. Did you know that the Beatles show at Shea Stadium in New York City was a history-breaking show? It had the largest audience to date, then and still today. Some of those reporters' questions were featured in one of my very favorite books. The Beatles Were Fab, and They Were Funny. The Beatles Were Fab, and They Were Funny was written by Kathleen Krull and Paul Brewer. It was illustrated by Stacey Innerst. The Beatles Were Fab, and They Were Funny tells the story of the iconic rock band The Beatles, consisting of Paul, John, George, and Ringo. The book gives insight on each band member's unique personality, and it also tells the history of the band, starting from Liverpool in England all the way to being one of the most iconic bands all around the world. The Beatles Were Fab, and They Were Funny is truly a quality book, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a mega fan. The Beatles Were Fab, and They Were Funny is a quality read for a number of reasons. First of all, it provides factual and real insight regarding the Beatles. You really get to learn about them as you read the book, which is really why I love it. Secondly, it includes authentic interview questions. Some of those were even seen earlier when we watched the videos of the reporter outside Shea Stadium. Another reason the book is a quality read is it's written in a very simple and comedic writing style so that anybody can really enjoy it. Adults, children, and anybody in between. Lastly, the illustrations are very unique. They feature a realistic look but also somewhat cartoon-like. Here's an example. You can see how they look like themselves, but they definitely have a little bit of a cartoon image to them. I don't think you need to be a Beatles addict like myself to enjoy reading this book. I would say any music lover, history lover, or anyone who enjoys fun illustrations could enjoy this book. You might not like this book if you're not such a history fan or if you don't like reading biographies and learning about new people. Otherwise, I think anybody would enjoy this read. All in all, this book is absolutely fantastic. I think if more people read it, they would become as much of a mega fan as me myself. Before I let you go, I'd like to end with a quote from the book. A plausible mission of artists is to make people appreciate being alive, at least a little bit. When asked if I know of any artist who pulled that off, I reply, the Beatles did. Quoted by writer Kurt Vonnegut. Thanks for listening. I was Beatles Girl 101. Feel free to read the book and post on my Beatles fan page letting me know what you think. Thank you for listening.